Coming to you live from the Danforth University Center here at Washington University in St. Louis. This is the Getting Ready with Teddy radio program on KWUR, Clayton 90.3 FM, and simulcast across the country via the Washington University Television Network for this February the 25th, year 2015. After a 2-week hiatus, Alexander Altieri and Teddy Drucker are back to bring you the world of sports on this very exciting Wednesday night. Good evening, Alexander. How have you been? It's been a while.
I'm great. It's been way too long.
Right?
Feels like it's been more than 2 weeks.
It really does feel like it's been more than 2 weeks. And you know what? I've heard it from the fans. They were upset. They wanted us back.
Yeah,
you know,
I mean, especially coming out of the Super Bowl like that, we just didn't even have a show.
I mean, we become part of the fabric, so to speak, of people's Wednesday nights. They don't know what to do with themselves.
I like what we did, though. You know, by not reporting on the Super Bowl, by not getting into that monotonous, did he make the right decision on the pass play at the end, we kind of went our own route. You know, the road less traveled.
We did
as
go
radio
the road less traveled.
Talk show hosts.
There's a book written about that, right?
Yeah.
By the way, you know, we're setting up for the show, and I was getting some real looks from the DJs before. I don't think they were too happy, and it was my fault, granted, because I didn't give them forewarning that I was going to barge into the studio and, you know, obviously we got the camera crew in here, we got the whole thing set up, and so they were not happy with me. Now Alexander comes in, and I don't know what you did, but for the second you stepped foot in the door, everything was better. And for those of you who know Alexander, he's not exactly known to be a peacemaker. You know, but wow, I mean, you really were like, I don't know what you would call a real diplomat. Is that the correct terminology?
I'll tell you what happened.
Yes.
I walk in, okay, and I immediately say, I don't know, I just started trying to crack jokes, and they literally didn't say a word to me. Right. They had no response. They were so insulted by my presence that I think my leaving made them so happy when you came back. Right. And then it kind of left them in a situation where they were so relieved that I was gone.
Listen, I'm a humble kid. I would like to think I'm likable. That's like one trait that if you stripped me away, if you took the shirt off my back, that's the one thing that I would have, is that, you know what, I'm a smiley person.
Hey, you got
People
a cute
tend
little
to
baby
appreciate
face,
that
you know, a little happy kid.
That's why I play so well.
So you know, I walked in. They had they had just finished doing a PSA about like washing your dishes with soap.
Not about Ebola?
Something about, well, you know, you can kill Ebola with soap, ladies and gentlemen, so look out for that. But, you know, I'm thinking to myself, like, what civilized person doesn't, you know, wash things? You know what I mean? Like, it's just... I
know a few who
Yeah, we both know a few, I'm sure. But at a certain point, like, before you eat, you're still going to, like, have clean anything or everything.
That's the truth.
And it was just a bizarre PSA. I walked in, I'm like, I can't believe they actually need a PSA for one of these. And they just look at me like, how dare you insult my PSA? How dare you insult my PSA? They don't, you know, they just opened with a KWUR binder. They didn't write that.
No. Listen,
no reason to be insulted.
Hopefully we'll be able to smooth over relations, but right now I kind of feel like we're the Boomer and Carton, they're the Mike Francesa, so to speak. We don't get along. But you know what? All that matters is the ratings.
Of course.
That being said, we got a lot to get to today. Most importantly, I know people who are watching the show, as promised, we are going to be giving away a free ticket to the Alpha Epsilon Pi philanthropy. What is it, the Gateway?
Presents Gateway.
Presents
the
Gateway
Foundation.
Presents Gateway dinner. We're going to be giving away a free ticket at 30 minutes past the hour. So I highly encourage you to stay tuned in. That's an expensive ticket, $30. And we also have another special giveaway later in the program. But a great week, a lot of philanthropy going on. But Terry, getting to the sports world, the world just came crashing down if you're a Chicago Bulls fan, and I know there are plenty of them in the house that you and I live in. But unreal what what has gone on the past 4 years with Derrick Rose.
It's funny just because it's not surprising at all, yet everyone's still shocked. You know what I mean? Right. Like, obviously, okay, he comes from his first torn meniscus, and, you know, he makes it back, like, great story, and then you know, his other knee gets hurt. Okay, I mean, they're not necessarily related. Maybe he was compensating, we don't know, but for the most part, they're not necessarily related. And then he comes back this year, and everything seems to have been going really well. Really smooth play for him. He hadn't been pushing himself too far.
I think like the 15 games since the All-Star break, he's at like averaging 22 points. You know, we're starting to see signs of the old Derrick Rose. Now, here's the situation which it becomes really tricky. You know, now it's no longer about the Bulls. It's about Derrick Rose. Because think about how unbelievably frustrating this is for a kid who, and now this season, take it for a second and isolate this season. no signs of anything, and then all of a sudden he has a little bit of complaint of soreness in the knee.
Yeah, it wasn't like an immediate thing.
Bang,
it wasn't like he was running and then he just lost it, right? Like, he just soreness. He was getting himself checked out, and it turns out it was yet another torn meniscus, so he's going to be out again.
Yeah.
And we have to think about where this, where his career goes from here.
Right. Really unbelievable. Go on.
I'd like to see him try to come back, but at a certain point, you wonder if he's just going to retire.
Our good friend of the program, Alex Squadron, said that he wouldn't be shocked if retirement was in the...
Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised at all.
But that's unbelievable to me. How old is the kid?
You'd think a guy this young,
right.
he's definitely mid-20s,
right?
Right? Like, you'd think he'd try to, at least try to play out his contract a little bit.
Right.
And then if he's still having problems, he's
really
a young guy. Like, he needs to make a career for himself. He needs to make some money.
Right.
Because he's never been a loud guy. He's not the kind of guy who, we see like a Tim Tebow who once his career starts to end, like he just goes into broadcasting or goes into media.
Right. He's not
that kind of guy, and we can't really. So I'm curious to see how he handles this, mainly because he needs to make a living for himself.
He does need to make a living.
He's a young guy.
Right. That's the truth. It's just, if you're him, how do you say to yourself that I'm going to keep pushing? Because after a while, he's come back from this is now, before this, 2 major injuries, and now he's going to his third. Players don't go through 3 in an entire career, and he's doing all this before age 30. If you're him, how do you say to yourself that I'm going to keep pushing?
The only thing I can possibly imagine is that his mindset being, I've done it before. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I've done it before. He hasn't had the long-term success coming out of it that we would hope for.
Right.
But,
26, by the way.
We saw this year. It's just the sort of thing where he can, he was healthy.
Right.
Right? He was, I don't know. It's depressing to see. I think we just kind of have to see how time what time shows us, and maybe we'll hope that the Bulls can pull it together.
Yeah. Really is an unbelievable story. But now, obviously, where the Bulls go from here, this is their shot. I was with Ari Lowenstein last night, a good friend of ours who's from Chicago, and he said this was the year that the Bulls were going to win. And now, all of a sudden, listen, I'm sure he could say that about any of the years that Rose got hurt. But, wait, do they have any shot now? Is guys like Noah...
Realistically, I don't think they were going to win anyway.
Okay.
I don't necessarily think they're strong enough to have beaten a lot of these Western teams,
right.
let alone, the Cavaliers, who are just incredibly hot right now.
Right.
But having lost Derrick Rose, Derrick Rose is in a lot of ways the heart and soul of that team, especially when Joakim Noah is not playing as well as he had in the past. And now, they're going to have to rely a lot more on like Kirk Hinrich to run the point. And Kirk Hinrich's a great secondary option as a point guard. Like, he's very good to come off the bench and play.
Right.
But at the same time, like, he's not the guy who needs to be playing 40 minutes a game. You know. And losing Derrick Rose, losing a player that can be that explosive and have that much heart, like, it's definitely a huge blow to the team.
Huge.
And they're going to be incredibly reliant now on other guys, which they have been in the past. They've had success in these situations. They've done well without Derrick Rose in the past, don't get me wrong.
Right.
But the real question is, as it always is in basketball, is where do they go in the playoffs?
Right.
Without Derrick Rose, they don't go far in the playoffs.
They'll
be able to fight, and they'll be able to succeed in the regular season in the Eastern Conference.
Right.
I wouldn't be surprised if they're able to maintain, and stay in like 4/5 seed range. But when it comes to the long term, when it comes to the short term of the playoffs, like, I don't see them being able to do much.
Yeah. Well, anyway, that's the extent of the basketball we're going to get into this show. So if you were hoping to turn on and hear my take on the NBA dunk contest, turn your television sets off. Because you're going to be very disappointed by the rest of this program.
We're going to just start talking about hockey the rest of the show. Hey, actually, I'm going to bring this up now that it's on topic. Patrick Kane, who, as Teddy likely doesn't know.
No idea.
Patrick Kane is one of the best players in the NHL.
Okay.
He's
like a regular Wayne Gretzky type of deal?
Well, no one's a regular Wayne Gretzky. That's definitely not a thing. But Patrick Kane and Jonathan Toews are the 2 best players on the Chicago Blackhawks.
Right.
The other heart and soul of the Chicago sports. And he got knocked out last night for a 6 to 10 week injury, which might, if it goes 10 weeks, carry into the playoffs a little bit. So it was a very, very bad night.
I have a script here. I'm going to shut off your mic in a second.
Very bad night for Chicago sports.
And I don't see hockey on here, and I'm not about to get into
Let's get on the ice, Teddy.
Chicago.
Let's get on the ice.
Hockey. I saw Luke Wilder the other day walking around with
I'm just pointing out that Chicago had a bad night last night in sports.
We're not talking about Chicago. We're not in Chicago.
Okay, but Derrick Rose is in Chicago.
Point taken.
Okay, they just had a bad night. That's all I'm saying. I empathize.
Point
I'm
taken.
a Mets fan.
We're not talking about hockey. Do you understand what I'm saying?
I come into the show. Do you understand the words that are coming out of my mouth?
I get so I hype myself up for the show, and you talking about hockey just puts me from a 10 to about a 2.
Let's talk about grown men running sprints. Okay, go ahead.
Okay, good. Thank you. The NFL draft, obviously the combine last Saturday. And I want to get into it for a second. You know, obviously we start with the 2 big quarterbacks, and that's Jameis Winston and Marcus Mariota. You know, both of them did everything they needed to do. Both of them were very impressive. There was no, it would have taken a lot for one of them to really change their status, so to speak. But, you know, take a guy like Jameis Winston. He's not the fastest guy in the world. So for him, something like the Combine, and I know that you are not a big fan of the Combine and have complained about it to me for a long time, but a guy like him does not exactly wow people because he doesn't throw that fast. He's not,
run that fast.
He doesn't run that fast. He's not that agile, but when you watch him throw, you realize, oh, this kid knows how to play quarterback.
You have to take his position into account. You know what I mean? Like, you're not going to see, I'm sure when Brady was coming out of college, for example, he wasn't lighting up the 40-yard dash.
Right.
You know what I mean? Well, he can throw the ball. It's the big thing for a quarterback is the arm on their shoulder, and then it's the head on their shoulders as well, right? So you have to think about that. And that's the one thing I like. I mean, that's one thing I'm going to favor Mariota on. And you know, not that Jameis Winston's a dumb player. I don't know enough about college football to really make that argument, but he's had his problems off the field.
Yes, he has.
Which can be disconcerting for a team. I mean, he's young. Don't get me wrong, he's a young kid, and being in the NFL, slapping around a little bit if he's messing around too much.
It is definitely an issue.
Mariota's is a smart player, and you see it. He gets the job done. He does it right.
Right. And he was impressive at that Combine.
Yeah.
I mean, talk about a guy who...
He's an athlete.
I was asking a good friend of mine who's a very big NFL fan, and I asked him, you know, so wait, you look at these two guys, Winston is definitely the more polished throwing passer. I know there was concerns about his throwing motion. I think he kind of put the kibosh on that on Saturday. Okay, take that as number one. And then number two, when you break down these two players and you say, okay, we have one guy who's a great passer, but the other guy is a pure athlete, and that's the situation you have with some of the receivers, which we'll get into in a second. But when you have that sort of situation and you're sitting in the war room, so to speak, at these teams, what do you say? Do you say, okay, well, here's a guy who has tremendous upside because of his athleticism, even though he's not as polished right now? Or do you say, we're going to go with the best player at the time? In this case, it would be Jameis Winston. Yeah. If you're a team, what are you saying to that?
Well, it depends on what the team needs, right? You have to consider that, you know, that difference between them, right? I guess if you're a team who wants, I think that Mariota's a more conservative choice.
Yes.
To be honest, I think he's got a little less upside. I think you know a little bit more about what you're going to get.
Right.
So a team that might want to play that route, right, might go towards him. But a team that maybe doesn't get the ratings that they might want, a team that needs that heart, that potential explosiveness.
Right.
I think that's a Jameis Winston type pick.
Right.
Frankly, I don't think either of them are necessarily destined for great things.
Right.
But again, it's.
Well, you're a cynic.
I am a cynic. I am a cynic. You know, I said the same thing about Cam Newton. And Cam Newton, you know, has had a good NFL career.
Right.
But you know, it's like that kind of quarterback that I've never been so thrilled with. But I guess we're just gonna have to wait and see based on, I guess, for one, you know, what teams need and what teams are looking for, and that's something we don't know unless we're in that office with them.
Right. Another guy who's very impressive, one of the quarterbacks, Brett Hundley out of USC. Did you get a chance to see him play? I mean, he was really impressive, and he's one of these guys who he's definitely a number 3 guy. You know, he's not exactly he's not Mariota, he's not Winston, but this kid can play. And, you know, in a class where you have 2 top dogs as your quarterbacks, here's your guy who, if you're a team, you know, if you're, you know, below the 15th pick of the draft and you're thinking, all right, you know what, quarterback's not our strongest role, Hundley's a guy who can sit on the bench for a few years, learn. I'm telling you, watch for this kid. He could be a good force in the NFL.
So you're saying if you're the New York Jets.
Well, we'll get into them in a second.
You should pick Hundley.
No, because I think that Mariota is going to fall to number 7. We'll get into that in a second. I want to touch on the wide receivers quickly.
I'm down.
You're down?
I'm okay with that. I can mess with it.
Right.
Take the risk.
Right. Hold your thoughts on that one for a few minutes. Obviously, the top 2 wide receivers in this draft are Amari Cooper and Kevin White. Cooper is just, he's the best wide receiver in this class, in a class that is just unbelievably deep at the position. He ran a 4.42, just, you know, blew everyone away. He looks so smooth coming out of his routes, too. It's like, you know, it's like butter on bread, you know? Land O'Lakes. You know those commercials where they say that Land O'Lakes, it's you know, you don't have to worry about spreading it. You know, butter is like really tough to spread around your
bar. Yeah,
right.
Off the bar, especially leaving in the fridge too long.
Exactly, and especially when you're dealing with bagels, you know, because bagels aren't the when you chop the bagel, unless you have like
whipped butter now. You can get it out of a little tube.
Right, right.
Not tube, little. I don't even know this little.
What do they have, a squirt tube now? They should. That's a great idea.
Write that down.
Andrew, what do we think? Squirt tube butter.
I think it's a great idea.
Great idea. But, you know, so here's the thing. When you, not to digress too much talking about bagels, although if you're a friend of mine, you know how much I do enjoy a nice bagel in the morning. But unless you have one of those professional chopping machines like Einstein's has, when I cut a bagel, it's not very neat. And then when I go to spread the butter on it, it's all choppy and it doesn't smooth over very nicely.
So this is a metaphor to say he doesn't have good hands. He's got butter fingers, or is this not?
Right. Well, let me stop digressing. Let's get back to Amari Cooper. You know, that he's butter. That's
yeah, he's butter.
Right.
Yes. But the good, like in a good way.
In the
good kind of butter.
This conversation is taking a real weird turn. If you're
you let sit outside too long, you know, it's like butter you've been.
Do you keep your butters outside too long?
Well, no, I'm saying if you're reckless and you forget to put that away.
Okay, Kevin White from West Virginia. Now, this is a situation, too, where it's the same scenario where this kid is a freak of nature. This is a big kid. You know, he's not as polished as an Amari Cooper, but this kid, he can go up and get it. Yeah. And you saw it in that combine. And that's why a kid like this has a little bit, in my opinion, and I'm not an expert. I'm not sitting there with my stopwatch. But if you got a kid here, he's got more upside than Amari Cooper does just because of his pure athleticism and size.
That's what they look for in the NFL, right? The guys who stand out athletically.
Right.
Right. Football is the game where it takes a lot of work, but you can be taught a lot of the technicals.
Right.
You know what I mean? It's obviously better to have that person who can run his routes really well and has great footwork or has a great sense of balance when he's in the air and is able to stay in bounds, stuff like that.
Right.
But to an extent, that's you know, that's fairly teachable.
Right.
Right? But it's the guys who can sprint and it stop. I mean, you're just like, wow.
Yeah.
You know, it can go as fast as anybody, if not faster. You can jump higher than anybody, right? You can reach over those corners.
Right,
and
right.
Those are the guys who are going to stand out in the NFL. And those are the guys who you want and you can groom to be the player that you expect them to be or want them to be.
Right. Another player very similar to is Devontae Parker. Yeah. I mean, it's the exact same scenario you're dealing with Kevin White, where again he's not as polished, and he's kind of looked at as the number 3 guy here very clearly behind White and Cooper. But here's another kid who is just he's huge, and he's a guy who's already a top 20 talent. But you know what? As we move closer and closer to draft day, and teams who need a receiver realize they're not going to get their hands on Kevin White or Amari Cooper, expect them to start putting Devontae Parker up there on their little whiteboards.
Of course, I mean, if he's a talented player, I mean, if they expect good things from him, if he's an athlete, right?
Right. The one worry with him, but here's the thing.
You can't just focus on getting 2 players. Obviously, there's got to be the depth there.
The one worry with him is that he has only had, you know, that last good year with Louisville was really his only full good year that he's had. But you know what? Still a very viable. I don't worry too much about it.
It's about the idea of being able to take that risk.
Right.
Right. If a team is willing to take that risk, which frankly most are.
Right.
If he's being talked about as a potential first-round pick, like, you know, if lower teams, like teams in the draft, can get him, they might be interested in that, right? If they need that receiver, and even if he doesn't end up being a number 1.
Right.
Right. He's still likely to be the kind of guy who's going to be in the receiving core.
Right.
And that's something that
right.
A lot of teams need.
Tyler Lockett, also from Kansas State, was very impressive. Little guy, 5'10", right?
Little guy.
Give it up for the little guys.
5'10", he's got 4 inches.
5'6" on a good day, baby, and we got Tyler Lockett at 5'10". He's a little one though.
Yeah, compared to the rest of the NFL.
But see that, you know, I see. There's something to be said if you were a small receiver, right? You know what? You're smaller than the guys. You can go in between their legs like you and I.
Yeah, you go under them.
Right. Right.
You burrow under.
You make sure that I'm on that IM softball team, by the way.
Did you get the invitation today?
No, I didn't. Did you send out an invite to the team and I wasn't on it?
Awkward.
Did you actually do this? Oh, but I can't believe I'm hearing this right.
I didn't send out the invites.
How can you possibly tell me that the guy who was the best CYO Little League player, I've used wooden bats since I'm 3 years old, you're not going to put me on the IM softball team, who you know is going to be more dedicated than anyone in that house, and you're not going to put me on the team?
I didn't send out the email.
Who sent out the emails? Pete Metz? That's the last time he gets a check for the school. You can pay that $30 out of your own pocket. I am pissed off right now.
Well, you know, Teddy, there are only so many spots. We have a lot of people to consider here. There's a lot of talent out of our direction.
You're the worst.
You know, I personally have.
This is atrocious. Yeah, can you believe this? I mean, this is unbelievable.
I had no idea. The email just went out today. I had no decisions as to who it was sent to.
Oh my goodness!
But that's too good. I love it. Thank you, Peter. I really appreciate that.
My goodness gracious. All right, let's get into some mock drafts here.
We'll work it out after. We might let you sit on the bench. Teddy's upset, guys.
Shut your microphone off.
So I think I was muted for a second there.
Yeah, now you're back on. I realized that wouldn't make for too good of a radio show if you can't hear him.
It's pretty tough, yeah.
Right. Anyway, let's get into some mock drafts. So number one, obviously, is the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Now, both Todd McShay and Mel Kiper, who I can't stand Todd McShay because Mel Kiper's the original guy, you know, and I'm a loyal guy. But that being said, both of them have Winston going as number one. You know what? Like you said, the Bucs are a team who, while they have a lot of promise, they've had 2 really bad years and really have not had a bright spot at quarterback since the days that Josh Freeman was supposed to be something good.
Supposed to be. I was about to say, yeah.
Because I mean, oh my goodness, we all know that between Mike Lennon and Josh McCown, it was not a pretty season down there in Tampa Bay. So Jameis Winston is going to be one that brings excitement. He obviously brings the talent, which we've spoken about.
A little bit of noise, you know. Right. It's good. I mean, it's good for the team.
Right. You know, a little bit of we them boys making noise mentality.
But the real question is, on a team like that, a team that doesn't necessarily have it together.
Right.
Are they gonna, you know?
No, they're not.
Whip him into the kind of shape that Mariota is coming out of the draft. Right. Like that's something to think about.
And that is something to think about. But I really do think that in order for the Bucs to go for Mariota, Winston would have really needed to have a bad draft, no matter bad combine, no matter how good that. And obviously, we'll see in weeks to come, things change. But I really don't see a way in which Jameis Winston is not on the Tampa Bay Buccaneers come April, whenever, or May 2nd, I think the draft ends. The Tennessee Titans at number 2, a lot of people believe that they are not going to go with whoever the Bucs pass up on. They're going to trust Zach Mettenberg, which to me, Mettenberger, excuse me, which to
it's a lot of words.
A lot of burgers.
Syllables,
right.
Yeah.
Which to me, you know, I come from the school that you take the best player available.
Depends on the team, though.
Depends on the team.
Scenario,
and listen, right.
This is the scenario in which you would take the best player available.
And the quarterbacks are not, you know, if they take Leonard Williams or Shane Ray, you know, they're taking some pretty good guys. They're not, you know, they're not exactly taking a kicker because they need a kicker. It's a different scenario. And now let's get into the New York Jets at number 6. And Altieri, I'm telling you right now, Marcus Mariota is going to fall to number 6, or Jameis Winston if they're not taking, whichever one is not taken.
I'll say it now, Jameis Winston would be just a disaster on the Jets. It'd be Geno Smith, but the guy's more comfortable in front of a microphone, which would only hurt them. Dear God, the last thing they need is just attention.
You know what? I think they should do it. Geno Smith is a lost cause.
Oh, I agree with that. I'm just hoping.
Sorry.
If we're in this situation, I'm just saying I'd hope for Mariota over Winston, to be honest.
And I think you're going to get it. I really do believe you're going to get it.
But, I mean, they need help in the quarterback position. Geno Smith isn't going to get the job done.
He's not going to get the job done, and those who think he is are wishful thinking. You know what else? You have this new regime on the Jets, so give them their own quarterback. Look how successful. I don't want to make Jets fans cringe because I know you'll never listen to me again. But listen, you know, think about how good Mark Sanchez was those first few, when it was the Rex Ryan, Mark Sanchez new millennium, so to speak, on the New York Jets. Think about how successful they were off the bat.
It's easy to teach a quarterback when they've had no other teaching. You know what I mean? It's easy to teach a player when they've had no other teaching. Like your rule is their rule at that point, right? You're not fighting old influences. Like you're just pushing something, and that's what's fresh to them. Right, and I completely agree with you. I think it's a great decision at that point, especially because you ideally hope that your quarterback is leading the team.
Right.
It's the coach on the field in a way, and that's something that can be extremely valuable, especially if the Jets' new regime is a successful looking for
one.
that situation.
And between the Titans, the Jags, the Raiders, and the Redskins, the only ones who definitely are not taking a quarterback, you got the Jags. They got Bortles, decent kid, let him ride out. Raiders with Derek Carr. I could see the Redskins making a move here. We'll see, but I really think that Mariota is going to fall to the New York Jets. If they do not go for a quarterback, though, interesting to see, do they add another wide receiver? Give Smith something else to work on, because you know what? If Percy Harvin isn't back, you're putting a lot of pressure on Jeremy Curley, right? Yep. Because you got your number one already. Then you got Curley. If you throw, if you get a Kevin White in the mix there, that really does do a tremendous amount for that football team with 2 number 1 wide receivers.
It does.
And then lets Curley kind of fall into that number 3 role, which I really do think he's meant for. New York Giants at number 9. Now, listen, the Giants, like I said a few minutes ago, they are a team that really does play to this whole take the best available player in the draft.
Yep.
So it'll be really interesting to see what happens here, because, listen, while Beckham was an obvious stud and the last year's draft class was strong as a whole, it's been a while since you have that JPP, Justin Tuck, huge defensive player that the Giants Jerry Reese has be known.
And those sort of players, they just fire up the team. I mean, they carried it, and it was the sort of thing where, they reached a point where, players like Tuck and JPP were almost competing with each other. Right. And they just psyched up everybody on the field. All the fans, the entire fan base was just raring to go every time they saw them get to the quarterback. Right. And that's something that, they need that energy, and that's what you get from taking the best player available. Right. Because frankly, there aren't very many places with the Giants right now that are just completely secure. Yep. I think there's a lot of room for improvement in near every direction right now. Right. And something like that, I guess, number 9, you're going to have some real talent there, so I would take advantage. Right. That's the truth. If they don't, if they go for an end, right, you got a lot of options. You got Eric Armstead from Oregon, raw talent, a lot like JPP, real talented guy. They could go Shane Ray out of Missouri, right here in our backyard. If he should fall, you got Bud Dupree, Dante Flower. You got a lot of guys who intrigue you in that, in that defensive end position. But then you could say, all right, do they go with a lineman in this situation? Brandon Scherf, Lyle Collins, Eric Flowers, Andrus Pratt. You got a lot of guys who can fill roles for the Giants. This is a very deep draft class, and the Giants are in a great position for what they need. So we'll see what happens. They could go for a running back. They can go for Melvin Gordon, although I think it'll be a little bit of a reach, the kid coming out of Wisconsin. But you know what? The running back position is something. They cut Peyton Hillis today. They're looking for another guy. We'll see what happens. And then they could also, now this is a team that does have a lot of wide receivers, but they could easily go for, even though they've got, who knows how Cruz comes back. You got Ruben Randall. You obviously got Odell Beckham, right? But if you are able to snag a guy, if Kevin White is slipping to number 9, or, I know build off it. It's true. Build a better core. I mean, it wouldn't hurt Eli, but frankly, what Eli needs is a good line that can help him. It's going to be real interesting to see what happens, seeing as Jerry Reese's take the best player out there mentality. All right, we have hit 8:31, so before we take a quick break, we did promise a free ticket giveaway. Yes. So this is how we're going to do this. When I say go, the first person to text me with give me your football team and give me your social security number. Yeah. And the last 4, your entire credit card number and security code as well.
Give me your football team and who you think they're going to take in the draft and why. First one to text it to me.
Jeez, and why?
And why. I'll read it on air. Gosh. And you win a free ticket to Alpha Epsilon Pi's philanthropy night this Saturday night. Great event. We're going to get a lot of NFL players, a lot of other great leaders in the St. Louis community and around the world. I know the CEO of 100 Black Men is going to be there. Some great things. Highly encourage you to do so. And it's a great.
If you text me a funny joke, I'll read that on the air.
Right. So, but the first one to do it,
media appropriate,
and we will read it. We will read it after the break. But before we go to break, we are going to do a quick public service announcement from the great Alex Altieri.
Preparing for home fires. 4 out of 5 Americans are unaware that home fires are the most common disaster threat. The American Red Cross reminds you to be prepared. Visit redcross.org today.
All right, that was a good one. All right,
Short
Andrew, we ready to go to break?
Watch out for Ebola, folks.
32 minutes past the hour, KWUR Clayton 90.3 FM. This is the Getting Ready with Teddy program. Back after this. All right, it is 24 minutes to the hour here on the Getting Ready with Teddy radio program after that short break. And Terry, we got some real exciting news. This is something that I am pumped about. So we had our little ticket giveaway, and we got some great responses. But coming in at number 1, I mean, I'm shocked that this guy, when you hear the name in a second, you're going to realize why I'm so surprised. I would like to give a huge congratulations to Stephen Barul for winning the ticket giveaway. His team is the New England Patriots, and he won Sammy Coates. They need a number 1 wide receiver, and he should be around at the end of the first round. And Steve Barul, baby, is going to the AEPI Anti-Bullying Philanthropy event. How about that?
That's great. You know, good for you.
That?
Good for you, Steve. You're really, I could tell from the get-go you were very enthusiastic about this philanthropy. I was, you know, glad to see you came in.
I'm gonna text him right
on top
now.
On that one.
In
the meantime, while Teddy's texting him, I'm going to tell you the funny joke that I received from an Alex Morrison.
Hold on. Well, okay.
From California.
Yes.
Again, my question was, my request was to send me a funny joke, and he just sends me at 8:32 p.m. Teddy's height. And I just, that was a comical joke.
That's a real low blow. Seeing as the guy next to me is about a quarter of an inch taller.
Yeah, I got at least half an inch on you, son.
And I got something for you, Alex Morrison. Okay, Mr. Sentinel, Mr. I'm supposed to be the voice of the senior class.
Yeah.
I don't care about
You're not so tall. No, you're pretty tall. You're pretty moderately.
You're a tall guy. You're taller than I am. Yeah. What are we gonna? We're all Jews. What are we gonna do? Anyway, 38 minutes past the hour. We got the joke out of the way. We got the ticket giveaway. I'm going to text Steve Barul here a big congratulations with an exclamation mark. I can't believe that. That is something special.
He's calling over and over again.
Is he calling? Does he want to get on the air?
I don't know if he wants to get on the air. I'm not looking to put him on the air right now.
We could put him on the air, actually, with the setup that we got going.
Lord knows we don't want him on the air.
All right, he's calling. All right, let's give him. Let's give him a little. Steve, congratulations, my man. Do we get Steve? Steve, you're on the air.
I'm on the air.
You are on the air. Steve.
First time, long time. Steve Barul over here.
Steve Barul, congratulations on winning our ticket giveaway. I'm shocked.
It's really an honor, and it's such a great cause. And I'm on the air.
Yeah, you're on the air now. Are you going to be attending?
Oh, absolutely. You know, it's a great cause. First time, long time.
First time, long time. Yeah, he's a long time, first time, long time listener. Long time caller. He just never listens to the show.
Yeah, exactly.
All right, Steve. Well, congratulations.
Your camera guys, pretty shoddy work out there.
Yeah. All right.
You know, I just really want to thank the fans of Getting Ready for Teddy. And you know, I wanted to bring up a hot topic issue here. So I see you have a sign, a pro-life sign. I wanted to ask what your sign is.
we're gonna drop Steve Barul here.
Cut him off.
We're gonna cut him off like a Mike France has to get rid of him. But big that's
congratulations, Steve. You earned it.
You won, man.
Gotta love it.
You won, man. Although Morrison, I'm coming for you.
We'll see you Saturday night.
Yeah, we'll see you Saturday night. I'm pumped for that. Let's jump into some MLB pitchers and catchers now. I want to say a disclaimer.
It's been so long.
Before we get into this topic, if you are a fan of Getting Ready with Teddy, it is no secret that Altieri and I struggle through the winter months, you know, staying on top of our stuff. But let me tell you something. This show is about to go from the highest rated show on Washington University's campus to the highest rated show in St. Louis. And before you know it, we're going to be taking over Mike and Mike. It's going to be Terry and Teddy in the morning. So let's jump right into it. We got pitchers and catchers reporting all over the place. And you know what? I'll throw you a bone. We're going to start out with your New York Metropolitans. And Alexander.
Yes.
There's actually some hope for them this season.
I'm so anxious.
Unbelievable.
So the way I viewed the Mets over the past few years was very much like, how many days a week can I watch? Can I like mentally stand watching that awful play?
Right.
Right. Matt Harvey comes in. It was 1 day a week.
Right.
It was 1 day a week.
Right.
Wheeler comes in halfway through that season.
Right.
All right, I can watch 2 days out of the week. Not that necessarily that they'd win all these games,
right?
But that there was something to look for, something to watch, something to excite me,
right?
Right. So I can watch 2 days out of the week. Then we come into this year, and we come to this past year, and Matt Harvey goes down hurt.
Right.
I'm worried again.
Right.
I'm worried again. Like what am I doing? But then we see the emergence of Jacob deGrom. Okay, and we could talk about the Mets pitching for days. I'm going to continue because God damn do I love it.
Right.
Now that Harvey's back, there's 3 right there.
You got a lot of...
Right? And when they're potentially winning games, it'll make watching players like Colon, who frankly is one of the easiest pitchers in baseball to watch, because when he's out there, it is fast.
He's going, it's fast.
It is fast. It's literally only fastballs. He pitches around 75% plus fastballs.
That's true.
Unheard of in the MLB.
That's true.
And it's the sort of thing where now I actually have I feel
you're fired up. I can hear. I haven't. You hear this when we talk about football?
There's excitement. There's
excitement.
The difference. And I'm not saying they're gonna. I don't know if they're gonna make the playoffs. They're certainly not gonna win their division.
This is eerily similar. Well, we'll get into that in a second.
Eerily similar to the 1984 season, for all of you folks above the age of 30.
I was gonna say 86. You got, between Harvey, deGrom, Wheeler, if Syndergaard, whatever he does, Montero, right? That's a pretty freaky Cologne, and the other
84,
guy, G.
84 was when they hit that
started.
When you could tell that they were on the rise, but
right.
they were still lacking a little bit.
Right.
86 is when they had it.
Was that Doc's first year? 84.
84 is Doc's first.
So
year,
okay, so that was the magical
Doc year.
Strawberry
the year before that. One rookie the year before that. So either way, it's big for them, and there's a little bit more of a little more excitement behind the team. Everyone's a little more upbeat.
Right.
When people say we could make the playoffs, no one's just scuffing at them, being like, oh no.
Right.
I'm not going to say they're going to win the division. The Nationals are a stacked team.
Right.
But they're going to be in the fight for the wild card the entire way through, unless they're just riddled with injuries.
Right.
And with a young team, you wouldn't expect that as much.
Right. That's the truth. Listen, this is a very vaunted rotation, but Terry, if the lineup doesn't produce, this is all for naught. Yeah. Because let me be real here, okay? The difference is that this team hasn't hit a lick over the past 5 years. Not a lick since the 06-07 Delgado Reyes Wright, where, wherever the hell he won, and he hasn't been the same thing since 2012, okay? Yeah. That was the last year where he had over 100 RBIs, 29 home runs that year, okay? 2013 had a decent year, but, 2010 was the 29 home run year. Anyway, this team has got a hit, and Duda got hurt the other day. Now, they're saying it's not a huge deal that,
it's also still February, right?
Like, still February.
He's got
his
oblique strain.
Side muscle, whatever. But they need Duda and Wright to produce if this team is going to do anything.
And that's what the disappointing thing is. The guys who you really count on most, like everyone can talk about, they need KWUR to do well. But KWUR's secondary.
He's a secondary guy.
And you look at the guys who are supposed to be the primaries. Even they are question marks. You know what I mean? Like Wright, again, as you said, he's coming back from injury, and he does the same sort of thing where they ask him if he's healthy, and he says, "Oh yeah, I'm 100%. It's the best I've felt in years." And like, what is he supposed to say? No.
Right.
Right. Like we don't know how he's feeling. So hopefully that isn't something. He's got no issues from his shoulder surgery, and then, like obviously Duda, who had never had a season like last season. It was the first time he was given a job, and was given an opportunity to just play long term, and he took it and ran with it. Did extremely well. And I don't think the injury is anything worth thinking about. It's extremely early on in spring training.
It's the truth. But you know what else? If these two guys, if they're able to produce, it takes so much pressure off of guys like d'Arnaud and Murphy and KWUR and Granderson and these secondary guys who, there is a scenario here, for as much as we're sitting here talking about how we're worried about the Mets offense, there is a scenario in which David Wright and Lucas Duda have great years, and then the rest of the pieces just fall into play. Juan Lagares, all these guys, that whatever happens at shortstop, between Flores and, this is the team that the offense could really go one of two ways. There is a clear vision here where you got Wright puts up, let's say Wright goes 20 and 80, right? Because that's what we can expect out of him at this point. Let's say Duda hits 30 home runs again. Let's say KWUR can bang out 20, which we'll see what happens going to that big ballpark, although they're moving in the fences yet again. You got d'Arnaud. Hopefully he can continue his development. Oh, there we go again.
Lost the sign again.
That's unbelievable.
You don't do a good job putting them up.
I don't. I wish they could let us keep them up.
To be fair, I don't help with any of the setting up.
Right.
Which is not the best quality for me personally.
Right. Well, go. Now that I'm on the live mic, we'll still play over TV. So I'm gonna fix it. Let's keep talking.
He's gonna fix the sign. I mean, for me, the biggest difference for the Mets right now is everyone seems to be having fun.
Yeah.
Have you heard about the Mets Avengers? What this is?
No.
So, the Mets, a lot of the Mets players have been getting superhero-based nicknames.
Right.
It started with Tom Verducci.
Right.
A couple years ago, naming Harvey as the Dark Knight of Gotham City. Gotham City being New York baseball,
obviously,
and Matt Harvey being the kind of hope behind it. So he's Batman. Right, and I know it's not Marvel for all you comic geeks out there, right? But that's one, right?
Right.
David Wright during the World Baseball Classic was deemed the name Captain America
for obvious reasons.
So we got those two because of his success in the World Baseball Classic on the U.S. We have Noah Syndergaard, who has been named Thor. For quite a while now, during his minor league experience, and then
Thor Equities, great real estate company in New York.
That may have been what they were referring to. Now that I think about it,
they filled up their internship panel though.
And now recently, after Duda's emergence last year, the phrase "Duda Smash" had been growing to the point where now he's being oft referred to in the media as Hulk.
Okay.
Which is funny, just because it's now a building theme. It's fun to watch. It's like everyone, even in the media, on the teams, they're having fun.
Right. They really are.
This is like the start. I remember when the Mets brought in Pedro Martinez back in 2006. He's just an energy.
He's an energy guy. There's a lot of energy on this team.
It's always good to see those serious players, like someone like Harvey, just because we're talking about the Mets, who's just all business. We're not seeing any fun when he's playing. Like he's just gonna get up there and do the job.
Yeah.
Like the Roger Clemens type. I will.
Right.
But you gotta have a high.
There's a high energy.
Good morale.
But let me pose something to you for a second. Let me
now.
pose something to you for a second. I'm going to give you a name, Curtis Granderson here. Now, I know this is not his first year on the team, but you know what? He's almost revitalized this year. Yeah. Could he be that fun guy?
He is. Everyone loves Curtis Granderson.
Right.
Everyone loves Curtis Granderson.
Right.
Everyone loves him in the clubhouse. He didn't perform as highly as we would have expected last year, and I think he's going to come into a less important role. I think he's going to be a little bit more used to, he's going to have a little less pressure on him.
That's what I'm saying. That's
and
great
frankly,
for
him bringing back Kevin Long, having
Kevin Long, I was just going to say, that's a messiah.
Man who literally saved Curtis Granderson's career with the Yankees. That could be
extremely helpful. Different scenario because under Long, Granderson really became a home run hitter. I mean, I remember midway through that first year that he was on the Yankees. Before that, he was hitting home runs. Then all of a sudden, he's going upper deck, right field. His average dropped, but he was hitting 40 home runs. I wasn't complaining.
And the home runs he was hitting at Yankee Stadium, frankly, I mean, he's not going to hit 40, but
no.
25 of them were home runs in Citi Field.
He's going to hit the ball out, more so with Kevin Long, and hopefully Long's going to teach him how to utilize Citi Field. But so you and I are in agreement with this whole Curtis Granderson can kind of be this, Johnny Damon, so to speak, of the 04 Red Sox.
I wouldn't be surprised if he acts as a spark. I definitely expect him to do better than last year. I'm not saying he's going to bat 250.
Right.
He's probably going to bat 230s range. But
man, I'm telling you, you get David Wright on the train, you get Duda to hit again, you get Harvey healthy, Wheeler comes into his own, DeGrom continues. This could be...
Bold call before the season. This is going to be my first one.
Sports Illustrated said they won the World Series in 08.
Quite a few. 09, actually. That was the year.
No, it was 08.
It was 09. Don't get me wrong. I know it. I know inside and out because I was right when the whole season. Remember, that was their worst year when everyone got hurt.
You sure?
Yes, 2014 in Citi Field.
I'm not going to argue with you. You're the Mets fan.
My first bold claim of the MLB season, I'm going to write it down for 2015. Travis d'Arnaud, although not going to be starting for the All-Star team, will make the All-Star team.
I would love to see that. Because he's a guy who everyone really, he just looked overmatched in his first
month or so. Then he started to come into his own. He went to the minor leagues for a week or so, and he came back up, and for the rest of the season had the highest slugging percentage for an NL catcher.
Which trade did they get him in? Why am I blanking?
They got him in the R.A. Dickey trade.
In the R.A. Dickey trade, that's right.
Syndergaard.
With
Syndergaard.
How about that?
Syndergaard was a little more of a throw-in.
Right. d'Arnaud, I remember d'Arnaud was the big guy. I knew they got him from Toronto. I forget in what deal.
They also got John Buck in that.
They did get John Buck, and John Buck hit a lot of home runs in his first month in the Mets. Remember that?
He hit about he hit like 15, and then
and then he went to sleep.
5.
Who's going to lead off for them? Are you going to put Lagares in the leadoff spot, or are you going to keep Granderson there?
So the issue here, and again, you know, we talk about the Mets because the Mets are, frankly, in a way, one of the more interesting teams in baseball. They're very homegrown. They're trying to work with a smaller budget, even though they have the capability to kind of do a little more. They have a lot of young talent. We're willing to see them grow. And, you know, I think it's going to be Lagares.
You do?
I do. I think it's going to end up being Lagares. And don't get me wrong, it's going to change here and there throughout the season. But Lagares has been improving steadily. He's not a spectacular player. He's not a spectacular hitter.
No, but he can put the bat on the ball.
He can run. The ball. And his issue is that, you know, he swings a little bit too much.
Yeah.
And we could see him in a situation where in the leadoff role, right, he's going to have to be forced to take pitches a little more and kind of develop a new form as a hitter.
Right.
And he's going to have his rough patches.
Right.
In doing so, he might start to take a little bit too much and lose his aggression at the plate.
Right.
But frankly, I see him as a more viable option than Granderson. You know, he's going to be a guy that's going to get that.
But this is the thing.
Get that single.
But see, this is where I disagree with you. Granderson is a guy. You remember what Freddie Gonzalez did a few years back with Jason Hayward on the Braves by putting him in the leadoff spot. I'm not saying that Hayward and Granderson are the same player, but it's a similar scenario where you have this outfielder who has got a lot of tools all flying around, but they don't really utilize all of them at the same time. Yeah. Put Hayward in the leadoff spot, that all of a sudden changed his entire approach at the plate, and from there he took off. I really do think, and Granderson played well at the end of last year when they started to put him in the leadoff spot. We were talking about how he can become that spark. I almost would say put him in the leadoff spot to start the season. See how Lagares does in the 8-hole. Keep Granderson in the 1. If Granderson is producing midway through the season, you can switch.
This is going to be one of those situations where we're dependent on what Kevin Long thinks.
Right.
Right. Because frankly, everyone's going to trust every opinion he has, frankly, about every player, but more so with Granderson than anybody else.
Right.
The one thing I don't want to see is Granderson get into a certain form of hitting, of success, you know, in the leadoff role, for example, and then bumped to the 5 spot where they think he can be more productive because, frankly, he's the kind of guy who'll change his approach to hitting and then start to screw some stuff up.
Right.
You know, the big question and the big thing that needs to be addressed is who's going to get on base more, Granderson or Lagares?
Right.
And in my opinion, it's going to be Lagares. I think he's not going to wow you with on-base percentage, but he's going to have, you know, his on-base his batting average is always high enough to keep a reasonable on-base percentage.
Right.
Granderson, however, man, he can fall off the map for periods of time.
That's the truth. He's a streaky hitter.
And when he's hot, when he's really hot, you don't want him in the leadoff role. You want him
you want him in
RBI spots.
That's the truth. How about the closer? So you got Parnell, who's returning from Tommy John. Probably will not be ready for opening day, is what we're hearing. So are we going with Mejia?
Yes, we're going to see Mejia in that role again. And I wouldn't be surprised if Parnell is potentially able to get together by the first week or two of the season.
Right.
And I think if they're not 100% on Mejia, which they aren't, to be fair. Not that Mejia's had his struggles. He's done very well in the closer's role. But they want first of all, Terry Collins loves to create this level of competition.
Right.
Right. I think one of the dumbest things that they could do is put someone like Familia, Jairus Familia, into the closer spot because he was so successful in the 8th inning, the 7th inning. You don't want to change his mentality at all.
Right.
Or you want to just keep doing what he's doing to have success, and you're going to keep Mejia there just because he's done it in the past. But frankly, I would even be more comfortable knowing that Parnell will take the job when he comes back. I think Parnell's going to end up getting it with, you know, by say season starts for them April 6th by. You know, the 15th, I'm expecting Parnell to be
know that
closer.
I once interviewed Bobby Parnell? For all you listening, I want you to look up on the internet, Bobby Parnell, Teddy Drucker. Tell me what you think.
I'm going to do that right now.
Bobby Parnell, Teddy Drucker. 6 minutes of the hour in the Getting Rid of Teddy radio program. We're going to turn our eyes to the Yankees for the time remaining that we have, and all eyes are on our good friend Alexander Emmanuel Rodriguez.
Why? Who cares? I got to be honest. I know it's been talked about. Oh, he wrote out an apology. Good for him.
Which apparently might not have been true anymore, according to his cousin Yuri Sukart.
He can write.
Whose walls he apparently peed on.
He can write, guys. He can write. No, who cares about him? For one, look, you got to look if we're going to talk about the Yankees, he's not going to be an integral part of it.
There's nothing to talk about right now with the Yankees. That's the.
I think the Yankees are in a good position. I think they made some decent moves in the offseason. I like where their pitching rotation is now. I know they're not 100%.
Listen,
but they're young and talented.
You and I are in different boats there.
Do you not? Okay, well.
You got Tanaka coming back from the injury. Yes. Let's assume he's fine.
Let's assume that everyone's healthy for now.
Okay, but you know what? I think even a healthy Sabathia is going to be a a average 3-starter.
Yeah,
at best.
no. I think he's actually probably the worst pitcher on the
I really
rotation
do
right
think
now.
that CC. It's sad, and everyone. The last few spring training, CC is in the best shape of his life. Now I read an article.
But,
he's no longer
that,
in
right?
control. They got to say that he's energized. This, that, the other. I'm sorry. I think that Sabathia is a guy who really did rely on the fastball, and now doesn't have it. Sort of like a Randy Johnson complex. They don't know how to pitch without it.
Yeah, I mean,
it's just the way that Sabathia is.
He's never had a point where he struggled before.
Right, we're now 3 years removed from like true ace form, and honestly, these ERAs are above 4.5. They're bad.
But you know what? If he's gonna be your back end guy,
right,
he's gonna give you innings. He is, he's a workhorse, right? For the most part, he hasn't had injury problems. He's going to be a guy, and frankly, it's good to have a little bit of that veteran presence there, especially because, whereas Tanaka's been pitching for a while, he hasn't had as much experience in the MLB. Ivan Nova's not exactly the type of leader you're looking for out of a guy.
Right.
But, it'll be good to have CC around for Pineda. It'll be good to have him for Evaldi a little bit, right? And
so like Pineda, is this guy just a complete bust? I mean, this is what I'm saying. You're saying you're excited by the Yankees pitching. I couldn't disagree with you more. Nova's coming back from the injury, and
interesting is basically my point of view. I think that someone like Pineda, had a lot of potential.
Right.
He hasn't lost his arm.
Right.
Right. He's a guy who's had problems with control. Right. He's had problems with his command, and that's something that's hurt him. Right. And he's a young pitcher. That's it. He's young. What could it be? 26 now. And so that's something that we can worry about, but frankly, I would not be surprised if not that I don't think he's going to be great, but if he's a capable pitcher this year, right? I think Nova, who's coming back from injury, is frankly just going to do his thing.
Right.
He's a 4-starter reasonably.
Right.
Right. He's going to get this job done. I think Evaldi's got a lot of potential. He doesn't get the strikeouts, that you expect out of a guy who throws that hard.
Right.
But for those of you who don't know, I mean, he averages in the top 3 in fastball velocity.
But why
average,
doesn't he strike people out if he's I don't like that. I mean, there's something wrong with that.
Well, look, it means he doesn't know how to pitch well. That's all. It means he's overly dependent on it. You can use other pitches to set up your fastball.
Yeah, but that doesn't mean anything to me. That means he throws a flat fastball. It's like the Kyle Farnsworth mentality.
Yeah, but Kyle Farnsworth had success in his younger years, right? It's about knowing how to use your pitches, right? And if he's young, he hasn't been taught well, and I'm not saying that the Yankees are guaranteed to give him
They're not
knowledge.
Exactly known for developing
young arms, yeah.
Right.
But it's the sort of thing where you
Phil
can
Hughes, Jabba Chamberlain comes to mind.
He's got a live arm. And maybe the fastball isn't the strikeout pitch. Because you know what? People aren't exactly
that's fine.
Hitting
it. The setup.
They're not putting it in play.
Okay.
He's got a high foul
I just think
rate.
that he's a guy that is getting a lot of hype because of how hard he's actually throwing. But I think there's a very good chance that this guy's just fine. That he's going to be a back-end rotation guy or worse. Who knows?
There's, in my mind, you're gonna see moments of greatness from him.
Okay.
Okay. I think you're gonna see those starts where he's a #1 guy. I mean, I've seen it.
Right.
He was on the Marlins last year. He pitched against the Mets. I've seen him be very, very good.
Right.
But you're also going to have those moments where he's never going to be worse than the #4 starter. He really never will.
Okay.
And these are guys who are young and have a lot of upside.
Right.
And so that's the thing that we really want to.
Listen, a lot hinges with the Yankees this season. Obviously, the lineup as well. You got a lot of guys in here. You got guys who can produce between Beltran and Tex and Headley and McCann and who knows what you get out of A-Rod. My problem with them is they're just not dynamic. That's the big issue. So
they're not. I mean, they're older.
Right.
That's the problem.
They're an older team.
They've all dealt with injury problems.
Right.
Like, again, we could talk about A-Rod when McCann, has had laser eye surgery 8 times.
Right.
Teixeira's, Teixeira's never been hitting for average. He's never had the success. And then Beltran, frankly, as you mentioned before, coming off the injury, and who knows if he's able to repeat what he was doing with St. Louis.
Right. All right. We've hit 9 o'clock. That's the wrap on what we got today. Big thank you to Andrew Ellison at the controls. Really did a fabulous job. We seem to have sorted out the technical difficulties for the time being. Alexander, as always, it was a pleasure. Put me on that IM softball team, and we will see you guys next week. Do some more baseball, get into some NBA, and Steve Barul, we'll see you Saturday night. Have a good night, everyone.
Thanks, guys.